So, good morning. Good morning. First of all, I want to applaud all of you for being here and trying to get the background information on Social Security. It is complex. You know, we don't hide that. It is very complex. So we're appreciative of you wanting to know more about it. And so I'd like to get started. My name is Jerry Hafer. I work with the AMAC Foundation. How many of you are AMAC members? Okay. The rest of you, I would encourage you to consider joining AMAC. It's a great organization. I'll talk to you a little bit about who AMAC is. I won't spend a whole lot of time on that. AMAC is the Association of Mature American Citizens. We are the conservative alternative. Won't say to who, but we are the conservative alternative. And we represent the interest of America's seniors. We have over 2 million members now, growing rapidly. So you can go to the amac.us website and get background information on what the AMAC Association does and what their services are and that kind of thing. There's a lot of information on their website, and that is amac.us. So I would encourage you to take a look at that. A lot of information about senior issues up there. We are very active in Washington, lobbying again on behalf of seniors for Social Security improvement, health care improvement, anything that affects seniors. You know, we're very active in Washington on that front. The AMAC Foundation is AMAC's public 501c3 organization, and we have a simple mission of supporting and educating America's seniors. We're organized in 2014 was our first official year as a foundation. So as public foundations go, we're still sort of new. We're just now completing our 6th full year. But in those 6 years, we've done a lot of things, and I'll talk to you a little bit about that. But you can learn a lot about the foundation at our website as well, and that's amacfoundation.org. So I would encourage you to take a look at it. There's a lot of information of issues important to seniors and a lot of breaking news. Every Monday morning there's a blog article of something significant involving seniors. So I would encourage you to take a look at that site. And most importantly on that site is an events page where you can keep track of events that we're staging like this that are coming up. There's a schedule on that page. So it's a good site to keep update on what the foundation is doing. I said that our mission is to support and educate America's seniors, and here's how we do that. Basically, we operate a seminar series, and this is one of the seminars today that you're participating in. We do, on average, 2 or 3 of those a month, and we typically have roughly 35 attendees. So we're getting a pretty good track record in the seminars that we do. And we cover a lot of topics of extreme importance to seniors. Social Security, of course. Healthcare, we do Medicare seminars, we do one on new to Medicare, we do a lot of seniors issues, veterans issues, so we kind of cover the gamut. We even cover some technological issues, and one of our favorites is cutting the cord. Now, how many of you love your cable company? Yeah, you don't get any hands on that. So we've been doing a seminar on how to cut the cord in terms of alternates for entertainment, that you don't have to go to your cable company. You still need the cable company because you need the internet, but there are alternatives, Hulu, that kind of stuff. So about 2 years ago, we had a pretty large group in here on another seminar, and I said, we're always looking for ideas on things that are important to seniors. And there was a woman in the front row that said, gee, I wish they could tell me how to get rid of my cable company. And so I said, now that's one we might want to explore. So we've done that maybe 6 times now in the past 2 years, and we fill the room. There's usually about 100 people that come that want to know about this. And we bring in experts mostly from Best Buy that talk about, they don't sell anything, but they explain what all this stuff is. And I have basic cable stuff, so I don't really know what that stuff is. Hulu, and what are some other examples? Netflix. I do have Netflix. Roku, yeah, that's another one. So they explain what all these things are and what you need to use them, because if you give up your cable, you got to be careful what you're giving up. So they cover all that in an excellent seminar, at least about an hour and a half. So watch out for that. We'll be doing that one again early in the year, because that's a very popular one. So as I said, we do 2 to 3 seminars like this a month, and we've been doing that since 2014, so we've got a lot of experience. We are live streaming. We're live streaming today, and information on that is available on the website about how to dial into that. So people that prefer not to come to a seminar can watch it from home. And we also then record it, and this one is being recorded as well and will be eventually on our website. So for people that couldn't make it today, they'll be able to watch the video recording of the presentation. So that's our seminar series. We also operate 2 information-packed websites. One is the Social Security Report, which covers just about everything possible about Social Security. Breaking news, background archival information like the past 2 or I think it's the past 3 trustees reports that come out every year that explain the condition of Social Security. We have a Q&A panel in the middle, which is basically the Ask Rusty kind of thing. Russ publishes that every week, and we transfer that to the website then at the same time, so it's available online as well. But we generally have a feature article and a series of latest news articles, all breaking news about Social Security. Tremendous website. It's a resource that a lot of people use. Right now we're getting about 4,000 hits a week of people going to that site, getting information about Social Security. So it's a great website, and we maintain that Monday through Friday. Medicare report is similar, but it's focused on Medicare and healthcare. So those are our 2 websites. And then thirdly is this Social Security Advisory Service. And that's, this is the group of Social Security advisors. That's a service that has been in effect since 2016. When we started in 2016, we had roughly, for the full year 2016, we did roughly 25 inquiries a month, and that has grown incredibly. I'll come back to that in a minute, but that's just a chart of how our activity has grown since 2016. And so now we're doing about 300 a month on average. And an inquiry can take us 5 minutes or it can take us 5 hours. I know Sharon and Russ get into some that can take forever. And so that's a service that we're really, really proud of, and we consider it our flagship service of the foundation. But back to this chart for a minute. So far, since we started this service, we've responded to about 8,500 inquiries from the general public. It's free to the public. We don't charge for this. We don't charge for anything, really. So it's a service that has been very well received. And back to the growth chart, right around this area is where we started to really promote the service. We felt by then we knew what we were doing, and so we began to promote it with AMAC literature, and we implemented this thing called Ask Rusty. And Ask Rusty it's a weekly thing that we do where we take a hypothetical question, which is based on a real question that we've received, and we publish the well-researched answer to that question. And hold your book up there for a second. Last year we produced a bound book of about 82 questions. About 82 questions in there. We're getting ready to do another one too, because we now published 156 Ask Rusty things, and that's Rusty, by the way.
Want to know anything? Use your math.
So you're really getting live firsthand treatment here. You get to meet Rusty. But that has been a tremendous success. We publish that every week to over 7,000 media outlets, and we know that hundreds of them are picking it up because we get inquiries that reference the Ask Rusty articles. You know, they'll say, I was reading in your Ask Rusty publication about, to pick a subject, and they'll have a specific question about that. So we've even gotten some inquiries from offshore, Guatemala, Guam, Uh, Yeah. Yeah, so I'm not sure what they're reading where they see it, but it's interesting that, you know, we're kind of worldwide with this service, and we're proud of that.
International Social Security Service.
International.
The Ask Rusty articles seem to be coming up more and more online when you search Social Security.
Yeah, yeah. So a lot of websites, blogs, newspapers pick it up and publish it. The Village's Daily Sun publishes it every week as well. You know, so that's getting us a lot of publicity, and it's helping grow the service. We now have 5 advisors, and we are trained and certified advisors under the National Social Security Association. That's our certification, and we have a advisor that's even dual certified. Sharon carries 2 certifications. One is NSSA, and the other.
NARSSA means I'm a registered Social Security analyst also.
Right. So we're constantly training and retraining ourselves. We have to be recertified every 2 years. And so we're constantly making sure that we're staying current. It's the kind of thing that it doesn't change a whole lot. The laws don't evolve that much, but there are little things that you just need to keep abreast of. And so, you know, we're constantly upgrading our skills. These are our certified advisors. I ask them to just say a word or two about where they're from and what they do. So why don't we start with Eileen?
Hi, my name is Eileen Cook. I have enough voice, believe me.
Yeah.
Is this on? No?
No, okay.
All right. Here's the, okay. Is that better? No? Where's the?
We can hear you. We can hear you.
Yeah, oh, there we go. Sorry, I didn't push it. Sorry, I didn't push it
We're recording.
hard enough. Thank you. Okay, we
Yeah,
are
so we gotta
recording.
we gotta be
Okay.
sure it's being
No, I
picked
got
up
it
on the.
working. I got it working.
Okay.
My name is Eileen Cook, and I have 40 years in healthcare, ranging from the clinical side to the financial side. And right now, I work as a healthcare research analyst and a Social Security advisor. Mine's more medical. I am more the Medicare person. When they have questions on Medicare and everything else, they usually come to me. Okay.
Medicare questions about the intersection between Social Security and Medicare are our 3rd highest category of questions that we get. So we keep her busy because anything questioning the references Medicare, we just bounce it right over to Eileen.
Especially Irma.
Yeah.
She loves Irma.
Irma in any penalty, Part D penalty, I get a lot of those. I get a lot of the veterans asking questions and the federal employees, the retirees, asking about Part B. And that's a lot of, and people who are coming from the ministries, Christian share ministries who unfortunately did not pick up Part B when they became eligible for Part B and thinking that they had credible insurance. I get a lot of those. Unfortunately, I have to break the news to them. Though I do always tell them, you know, there's always an appeal, and I always tell them appeal. A cost of a stamp is nothing compared to what you will pay for the rest of your life. So it's worth the appeal. So that's my spiel.
Okay, Arlene?
Hi, my name is Arlene Sharp. I'm originally from Massachusetts, moved to Florida in 2002. And I started with AMAC as a customer service representative in 2013. I have decades of customer service experience. And I moved over to this position in the foundation earlier this year. So I've been really excited about being able to help people understand what they, you know, can and cannot do as far as Social Security goes.
And she is doing a fantastic job. I was very impressed with how fast I was able to put her live on the phone. I was so happy.
Okay, Sharon.
Okay, my name's Sharon Klotchka. I was born and raised in Chicago, Illinois. But I worked my way up to Green Bay, Wisconsin, and then came down to Florida in 1998. I have over 25 years of an accounting and tax background before I was approached in the end of 2015 if I'd like to learn Social Security. Well, I love a challenge, and boy, did I take a challenge on, but I've learned a lot.
And Russ.
Okay, my name is Russ Glore. I spent most of my life and most of my career, all of my first career in the New York area. I retired from IBM, started with a couple of smaller companies like American Express Company in technology. So I used to program computers, and now here I am wandering around in Social Security stuff. So my wife and I moved to Florida in 1999, and I decided after 10 years of retirement from IBM that I needed to do something else with my brain than add up my golf card. And so I was fortunate enough to get a job with AMAC, starting also as a customer service representative, and then going into the AMAC Foundation as a Social Security advisor. After going through what these guys didn't mention was a quite rigorous training program, which consists of classroom training as well as an internship. So I finally found, as I mentioned to Jerry earlier, after a long career with IBM, I finally found what I really want to do in life. So I'm really enjoying helping people with Social Security. That's why I'm still working, even though I'm quite young, as you can probably tell. I still enjoy working because I love what I do, and in life you got to love what you do. So
I think that's the common denominator in all five of us. We enjoy what we do, and we enjoy helping people. And we get so much out of when we've helped someone understand something that's so complex, and they are so appreciative. We really feel good about that. As I said earlier, I'm Jerry Hafer. My background was information technology for a public utility up in Pennsylvania and New Jersey. That company, I retired in mid-1990s. I don't remember the exact year. But I didn't really do anything for a couple of years and finally got tired of retirement and moved to Florida in 2003 because I got tired. I'm from Pennsylvania. So I kind of got tired of shoveling snow. And so in 2003, I moved to Florida, and I live in the Villages. I play golf, but I'm not a golfer. And so that wasn't that much fun anyway, so I began to look for something to do. So for 7 years, I was an adjunct instructor at Lake Sumter State College, and I did some consulting work for SECO, the electric company. And then in 2011, I left my contracts expire because my son and his fiance at the time were having a baby, and I wanted to be available to them. So I took some time off, 2 years actually, and was a full-time babysitter for an infant. And that was 2 years that to me were incredible, and I wouldn't trade that for anything. But then late 2012, I started to kind of get bored again, and they put the baby in daycare, and I had nothing to do again. So I found AMAC, and found it was an organization that I really believed in, and I really appreciated their mission. And so I joined as a writer actually for the magazine and for web content. And then in 2014, I moved into the foundation, and I've been there ever since, and it's just an enjoyable thing to do. So that's our Social Security advisory staff. And if you call in with any questions, you'll get to one of us, most likely Sharon or Russ or Arlene. If it's Medicare related, you'll get Eileen.
And we'll get you over to her.
And if there's nobody else available, you'll get me. But anyway, that's our staff, and we're proud of it. We're proud of the work that we do. So again, I appreciate you being here for us. Now let's get into some content. I'm going to ask Sharon to just give us a quick recap of what we're going to talk about today. And it's not as intimidating as it looks. We're not going to go into this stuff, all that detail, but Sharon,
Okay, these are
Mike,
Okay, the things we plan on covering, of course, are what's new for 2020. Social Security basics, eligibility, calculation of benefits, your retirement age, when to file, early, full retirement age, DRCs, which are delayed retirement credits, and breaking even, the taxation of benefits, disability basics, eligibility, working while on disability, and transition to full retirement age. Spousal benefits, as they are available to both married and divorced spouses. Surviving spouse benefits, married and ex-spouses. Working after filing, the earnings test for someone before their full retirement age. And if anyone's ever been in a position where they didn't pay into Social Security, we'll be covering the windfall elimination provision known as WEP. Jerry calls it WEEP. I don't blame him. We also will be covering the government pension offset known as GPO, who's affected, and the impact on your benefits, and some more, a little bit of Medicare, and some more Social Security. Okay, on this table, you'll see where the increases were for 2020 as far as the maximum taxable earnings, which have gone up to $137,700. Also, the maximum Social Security benefit for someone reaching full retirement age in 2020 has also increased. You now need to earn $1,360 a quarter to make your 4 quarters for the year to qualify. And the new earnings test limits, if you're under your full retirement age, it has gone up to $18,240 annually. And the year you're going to reach your full retirement age, there is a substantial increase where you can make up to $48,600 before your birthday. And all these increases are based on the National Average Wage Index, determines these figures, and it can actually decrease, but in the history of Social Security, it's only decreased one time, and that was in 2016. And people that can collect Social Security are retirees. You must be at least 62 years old. You must have at least 40 quarters, 10 years of work to be eligible. And once again, the quarter credit for 2020 is $1,410 a quarter, which is $5,640 a year. You can actually earn those 4 quarters in 1 quarter if you make enough money. Spouses of living retirees must be at least 62. This includes both current spouses and ex-spouses if you were married at least 10 years. Survivors of deceased retirees, at least 60, 50 is disabled. Current and ex-spouses, dependent children under 18 or 19 if still in high school. Probably wondering why we bring up children in a Social Security seminar, mostly for retirees. It's come to our attention that it's very common that grandparents have adopted grandchildren, and they're not aware that they can collect benefits for their grandchildren. And then also dependent parents. If you've been responsible for the support of your parents, should anything happen to you, they can actually collect a benefit on your record. And then disabled workers with enough quarters, which varies with age, and also disabled adult children that were disabled before age 22. they're also eligible on your Social Security record.
By the way, if we cover anything or mention anything that you have a question about, feel free to just, yell out or raise your hand or whatever. It's an informal, kind of an informal group, so just feel free to stop us. We'll have time at the end for individual personal questions if you want to stick around and ask them. But I want to get into how is your benefit calculated? We are constantly surprised by the number of people that really don't have a clue. They get a number from Social Security, this is your benefit, and don't have a clue as to how that's actually calculated. So I want to just spend a couple of minutes and go through that calculation process. It begins with your earnings record from IRS. Social Security has all of your earnings that are there. That information is transferred to Social Security from the IRS when you file your income tax returns. They have your entire earnings record for your entire the entire time that you paid FICA tax. I'll say it that way. The first thing that Social Security does with that information is they adjust those earnings by a factor that basically represents inflation from the time, because if you earned $10,000 30 years ago, that's worth more in current. So they actually present value those for now, and then they'll take the 35 highest of those adjusted years. Now, this is where a lot of people, you'll hear people say, well, it's your last 5 years or your last 10 years, but it's actually your last 35. And they'll take those 35 years and add them together, total them up, and divide it by 420, which just happens to be the number of months in 35 years. That produces something called the average index monthly earnings. The acronym is AMI, as referred to at Social Security. And that basically is a reflection of, through your entire 35 years of earnings, highest earnings, that's the average monthly earnings that are after being adjusted for inflation. They then divide AMI into 3 segments, and this is where the math gets to be a whole lot of fun. They'll take the first piece, which is $0 to $960, and you'll get credit for 90% of that, and that begins to build your benefit. The second piece is from $960 to $5,785. And for that piece, you get credited 32%. And then the third piece, $5,785 to, this is an example of somebody that has an AMI of 6,000. But $5,785 to whatever your AMI is, you get 15% of that. So,
Of the 6,000.
pardon me?
So it can be larger than 6,000.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Yeah, the 6,000 is an example of just somebody that has an AMI of 6,000. If it were 7,000, then it would be 15% of 5,785 to 7,000. But this is where the progressive structure of Social Security comes into play. The lower your earnings, the higher the allocation is.
Where you said it's 35 highest earning years, to qualify, you only need 10 years though, correct?
To qualify for
What
benefits.
happens to the other 25 years?
They're counted when your benefit is
Yeah.
Yes, if you only have
The-
10 years of earnings, what they're going to do is they're going to add 25 zeros, which is really going to reduce that amount.
Yeah, that's if you only work 10 years. Okay.
Yeah,
But it's really 2 different things. The 10 years is to qualify for benefits, and the 35 years is to calculate the actual benefit. So it's really 2 different things.
So whether those 10 years to qualify were included in the 35 depends upon how much money you earned during those total 35 years. And those years are adjusted for inflation. So for example, if you made, $20,000 in 1990, you'd probably need about $40,000 in today's dollars to replace that.
One interesting aspect of the way Social Security does this is these are rounded numbers. If you actually did the calculation, this could have been like $2,623.89. It becomes $2,623. The 89 cents goes away. And there's some conjecture. I recall reading an article not too long ago about how Social Security, the article equated that to robbing people of their benefit, because that 89 cents goes away and you don't get any benefit for it. But to an individual, it's not that big a deal, but to 63 million people, it gets to be a big number. So, but anyway, the point is it's rounded down. They like to say it's rounded, but it's rounded down.
Yes, but I've actually had phone calls with people calling, wanting that 90 cents a month.
Oh, sure, sure. Yeah. That's one of the, I won't say fun, but it's one of the more interesting things that we get involved in these, handling these inquiries. Some of the questions we get are just unreal. So, but anyway, that's a real quick look at how benefits are actually calculated. But I think the key point is it's the highest 35 years and not the highest 5 or 10, which a lot of people think. So, moving on. Russ.
Okay, is this working? I don't know. Can you hear me? Yeah? Okay, good. Yeah, so my presentation style is a little bit difficult. I gotta move around. So this is one of the things that's kind of astounding, really, to me, because we still get people who think that 65 is the full retirement age. 65, many years ago, in fact, was the full retirement age. But in 1983, Social Security was running out of money, so they did some changes, and they implemented an increment to the full retirement age, which started to take effect when for someone who was born in 1954, after 1954. So it became 65. If you were born in 1955, it became 65 and 2 months. And if you were born in 1956, it became 65 and 4 months, and so on and so forth. So that's the way that whole thing was changed. So we don't really see too many people now who are just claiming Social Security and they were born in 1938. We just don't see that. I mean, obviously, people born in 1938 have probably already been collecting for 20 years or more. Most of whom we see today are in the 66 to 67 time frame. So full retirement age becomes really, really important because it's one of only several things that actually determine your benefit when you collect it. One is the 35 years that we were talking about just a moment ago, which basically says what your base rate, it's actually something called your primary insurance amount, which is the amount that you get at your full retirement age. If you claim earlier than that, earlier than your full retirement age, your benefits are cut. If you claim later than that, your benefits are more. So a lot of times we'll say, well, you get 100% of your benefits at your full retirement age. It's 100% of your primary insurance amount that you get at your full retirement age, but you can actually earn more than that. You can earn quite a bit more than that. As a matter of fact, if you claim at 62, you're taking a benefit cut of about, depends on your full retirement age, between 25 and 30%. But if you wait until you're 70, you're actually getting about 32% more. If your full retirement age is 66, you're actually getting 32% more than you would get at your full retirement age. If your full retirement age is 67, you get 24% more. You get 8% more per year up to age 70. So that's a big swing. In fact, the difference in benefits between age 62 and age 70, you'll actually get about 76% more at age 70 than you would get at age 62. So it's a big thing. It's a big thing that I wish I had known when I claimed Social Security, because if I had known that, I'd probably be making about $1,200 more a month in Social Security than I'm currently making. Right, so which frankly would come in handy at this point.
Before we leave this, I want to add one of the little quirks that we run into in Social Security. If your birth date is, 43 to 54, your full retirement age is 66. But if your birthday is January 1st, 1943, you're actually considered born in 42.
Right.
So a lot of people don't know that, and it only affects, of course, a small number of people, but it's those kind of quirks that just make everything interesting in Social Security.
In fact, as a general rule, if your birthday is on the first of the month, you're actually considered to be part of the previous month.
Yeah.
Okay, so. Well, just go back to that chart for a minute. There's a point I want to make. Thank you. There's a lot of talk about Social Security in the news now about the fact that there's some solvency issues that we need to deal with, or they need to deal with, they being Congress. One of the things that is on the table is raising the full retirement age. And that's something I think that's a real possibility. In fact, in my humble opinion, it's something that needs to be done, and I'll tell you why. Because in 1935, when Social Security was first enacted, the expected longevity was about 65 years old. And today, according to Social Security, longevity for a man is about 84 and about 86 and a half for women. So people now, instead of claiming Social Security for a few years, as they were back in the old days, so to speak, they're now claiming Social Security for decades, right? So kind of that's a reason for the problem. Thus, in my opinion, the full retirement age has to be raised because people are living. Now, that would affect none of us here, because whenever Congress does something, they do it for the future, because they don't want to take the heat at the polls, right, and during election time for hurting anyone that's already on Social Security. So if they do that, it's going to be for future. Okay. So this is a distribution, claiming age distribution. This is kind of when people claim. Look at the age 62. By far the majority of people claim at age 62. Why? Well, in my case, it was because my father died at age 62, and I really didn't know any better, right? So I just claimed. I really didn't need the money. I was recently retired. I was flush with cash and savings and stocks and stock options and all of that. But I did it. That's the most popular age. Full retirement age is next, and that could be 66 or 67 on today's standard. And there's a bunch that do it in between. But you can see the distinct push by most people to retire at age 62. And they're taking a massive cut in benefits by doing that, especially cumulative benefits over your lifetime, because, well, we'll get into some of that stuff later. So what is the best stage? And we get this all of the time, our questions. I want to know, when should I apply for Social Security? And our answer is always, well, that depends. It depends on, do you really need the money at this point? What's your health? What's your expected longevity? You know, if somebody is really in very bad health and they say, well, I think my longevity is, maybe 70 or 68, and by all means, take the money and run. But if they say, well, you know what, my family history is my father lived to be 94 and my mother lived to be 101, and all my aunts and uncles lived to be in their 90s, chances are pretty good that you're going to have pretty decent longevity, in which case you're going to get a lot more in Social Security benefits by waiting to claim, because you're going to be getting that higher benefit for a long period of time. This is a chart that accentuates what I said before about why I'm so sorry that I claimed Social Security. I'm sorry, I'm standing in your way. Why I claimed Social Security at age 62. I regret that, because you can see, I mean, I look at everything to the right of that first bar that says 750. I look at that as money that I should have and don't, because I claimed at age 62. Yes, sir.
Based on your longevity, the average age of 84, aren't the tables set up that if you do start at 62, you're collecting longer versus
Smaller benefits for a longer period?
benefit over a longer time?
Yes. So
this is where you start at your full retirement age. aren't they supposed to equal out?
Social
In
Security,
theory?
Social Security will tell you that. So the answer to that is yes, in theory. But what it doesn't take into account is that they will equal out at an age that's probably going to be a lot younger than you're actually going to live. Let me say it a different way. If you start at 62 versus, let's say your full retirement age is 66. If you start at 62 instead of 66, or let's say you say, well, should I start at 62 or 66? Well, how long do I have to live to make up those benefits? You'll break even at age 78.
78?
So if you plan to live longer than 78, not that you have anything to say about it, but if you plan to live longer than 78, or you think you're going to get far more in benefits by waiting until your full retirement age.
The break-even point isn't 84?
No. The break-even point between 62 and your full retirement age is 78. I'll show you a chart on this in just a minute.
Okay.
All right? Then you got to look at, you have to, there's a whole bunch of other stuff that you need to look at. For example, you could say, well, how about if I wait until 70 versus 62? Or how about if I wait until 70 versus 66, my full retirement age? And can't tell you the number of analyses that I have done on this thing. And it all comes down to 12 years between full retirement age and age 62. All right. And it also comes down to 12 years between 70 versus your full retirement age. So, okay?
And
Is 70 the maximum amount you get?
70 is when you stop earning those delayed retirement credits that Sharon was talking about before. You actually earn delayed retirement credits at the rate of 2/3 of 1% per month. You don't have to wait until 70. You can, let's say your full retirement age is 66, you can wait until you're 68. And then so 2/3 of 1% per month is 8% per year, right? So you could wait until you're 68 and get 16% more.
But after you're 70, it doesn't increase it.
You know, it doesn't increase at all, except for COLA increases, which are pretty small these days. But, I mean, we have people, I can't tell you the number of times I've dealt with it, and I know these guys have as well, where people say, you know what, I'm 73, I'm still working, and maybe it's time I start thinking about collecting Social Security. And it's hard to tell them, guess what, you just lost 3 years' worth of benefits, because you can get 6 months retroactive, but that's it.
Because the money amount is going to change from 70 to 73.
70 to 73, the base amount isn't going to change. What would change it is if COLA increases are given while you're not collecting, because those still do get applied to your primary insurance amount. Okay? The break-even analysis that we were just, how wonderful, huh? How's that for timing? So this chart here, this is starting at 62, this is starting at your full retirement age. In this example, it's 66, and this is starting at 70. So you look at where these lines intersect. It's really quite easy to do this because you just look, for example, between here and here, you look at the amount of money that you collected here in this period of time if you want to start at age 62. You look at the amount of money that you would collect if you started there, and you look at the difference between what you get here and what you're getting here, and you divide the total amount that you got, that you would get in that period of time, by the difference between the two. I've done so many of these, I can't even tell you. It all comes out to be, I mean, it gets a little bit different if you look at, well, 64 and a half or something like that. So it varies a little bit, but it never varies by more than 6 months or so. So if you look at those particular ages, it's 12 years, unless you start at 62 versus age 70, in which case you're going to break even at 81 instead of 83. Yep.
But this doesn't count what you can make on the money that you've collected.
I'm glad you mentioned that, okay? I get that a lot. I get a lot of people who say, well, you know what, I'm going to take the benefits. Some say, I'm 62, I'm going to take the benefits, I'm going to take that money and I'm going to invest it. And I'm going to earn money on that. Well, there's a couple of things they don't take into account. One is that they're going to have to pay taxes, income taxes on that money. Two is that between, let's say, 62 and your full retirement age, generally speaking, your benefit's going up by 6.7% for each year that you wait. And three is that in today's world, you know, back in the old days, so to speak, it wasn't too difficult to make a pretty good return by investing in the market or whatever. Today, most people are hard pressed when we get to be our age to start investing in things which pay as much as 8% increase per year. So we've done a lot of those. So the taxes, people don't worry about the taxes, so they don't take that into account when they say, okay, I'm going to invest it. But the other thing is, if they're still working, they're not going to get all of their benefits. If you're before your full retirement age and you're still working, you're going to be the earnings limit that we talked about before. If you're still working, especially full-time, and you earn more than that earnings limit, Social Security is going to take back some money. How much are they going to take back? Well, whatever the earnings limit is for the year in question, in this case it's $18,240 for 2020. If you earn more than that, they're going to take back half of everything you earn over that. $1 for every $2 over that. Unless you're in the year that you reach your full retirement age, in which case it goes up. It goes up by about 2.5 times in the year you reach your full retirement age, but before you reach your full retirement age. So what was it for that year? It was 46,900, something like that.
I think it's 48.
48,000. Okay. So. Okay. So here's one. We normally get this in the way of a rant. I frequently see it on Facebook or in an email, a chain email, where I am so sick and tired of this because I know that I will never get back from Social Security what I paid into it. Well, guess what? Somebody, a person who we very highly recommend, actually did the math. Devin Carroll is the one. And he found, he made some assumptions. The NAWI is the National Average Wage Index. And he looked at that and said, well, okay, what if a person were making only half of the national average wage? And what if they were making 100% or 150%? Or what if they were making the most that they could make and got the full amount of benefits they could possibly get? And here's what he found. If you're only making half of the national wage, you're actually going to break even in about 34 months. That's amazing. That's less than 3 years. And in this case, this is 42 months. And can you read that? I can't read it. I don't have my glasses on. But you see the point. It's about 48 months, and then this is age 71 in 3 months. So you don't really have to be collecting terribly long to get more money than you actually paid into Social Security. Now, full disclosure, we're talking about the 6.2% that you pay into Social Security, not the 6.2% that your employer pays in. All right, so, but as far as my personal contributions, I long ago got back what I paid into Social Security. And then this is another one that emphasizes that same point. And this looks at how much was collected by someone who took it at their full retirement age and lived to be 85 years old. The blue is the amount that they contributed to Social Security, and the orange or yellow or whatever it is the amount of benefits that they got back. So you can see, you don't have to collect for a terribly long period of time before you actually break even and get more back. And we see people, we do analyses all of the time where people are getting back $1 million, especially couples, over the course of their lifetime, right? Now, these are obviously higher income people, right? But people get back a lot of money. In this particular example, that's probably about $800,000 right there, and this is one individual. This is not couples. So, yeah.
How about the annuities? If you put the same amount of money you put into Social thought ahead?
I don't think so. Personally, I don't think so, because of the things I said before. But a lot depends on, if you can go into an annuity and get an annuity that's going to pay you back
8%.
10%, let's say. I have an annuity, and I can tell you right now, it doesn't pay me 8%. 6, yes, but not 8.
I don't know if the Social Security in the shape they were in, if they would have robbed it.
Nope, that's another one. We're going to talk about that.
Okay.
Because they did not rob it. That's a common myth. It's one of the myths. So do we want to address that now, or we have another try? So we love to get into myths, and I got to tell you, I write the articles, as you guys know, and I wrote an article one day about the Social Security Trust Fund, and on this particular topic, because I got a question from somebody, an email that said, you know what, if Social Security would be just fine if, I can tell you the things that we get, if President Johnson hadn't stole that money to pay for the Vietnam War, if President Kennedy hadn't stolen the money to pay for the Peace Corps, if President Reagan hadn't stolen the money, if President Clinton hadn't stolen the money, if Congress hadn't stolen the money. See it all of the time. And I can tell you this because I have investigated, we all have, we've looked at it. Not a single dime has been misappropriated from the Social Security Trust Fund since it was started in 1935. Not a single dime. We've looked at this. The one that we hear most often is Johnson. And the reason for that is that there was an accounting change that was made by the federal government to make things look better from the standpoint of the national debt, or the annual deficit, I guess is a better way to say it. So what they said was, you know what, well, the deficit wouldn't look quite so bad if we took the money that was in the Social Security Trust Fund and made it look like that, it'd make the debt look better because we got this over here, sitting over here in the trust fund. So they did an accounting change, which was later on reversed. But people think that they actually took the money out of the trust fund and moved it over to the general fund. That's not what happened. It was simply an accounting change to say, let's make the national deficit or the annual deficit look better by adding what we have in the trust fund to our assets so that it makes the deficit look not quite as bad as it was. Pure political stunt. That was reversed in 1993.
Now, how about the fact that they put, when it originally started out, it was for the people who paid in, and then they changed the program to put so many things underneath it.
Well, you're talking about like illegal aliens, or you're talking about,
I'm talking about my grandmother who never paid in a nickel into Social Security, got Social Security.
she got Social Security probably from your grandfather.
He didn't pay it in either,
Well,
because he had died before 33.
well, let's talk about Ida Mae Fuller.
Yeah.
Ida Mae Fuller received the first Social Security check on January of 1940. Ida Mae contributed for 3 years because we say 1935 was when Social Security started. They actually didn't start withholding money until 1937. So Ida Mae earned $800 a year, and at the time, the payroll tax was 1%. So she paid for 3 years at $800 a year in, and she paid in about $24 and some cents. Was it?
24.90 or something?
Something like that, yeah, 24.75 or whatever it was. So she was real happy because when she got that first check in January of 1940, her benefit amount was $23 and some cents, which wouldn't have been too bad because at the time, life expectancy was 63, 64, something in that age, and she was already 65. She fooled them. She lived to be 101 years old. So she paid in over the course of 3 years at, let's say, $25 a year, about $75, and she got back $22,800 in benefits. Now, for your grandfather and grandmother never paying in, I don't know how they work that, because I could see if your grandmother never paid in but your grandfather did, then when did it come in with spousal benefits, Sharon? When did spousal benefits come in? The point was, when it was originally made for retirees, people who worked and contributed to the system. Then along the way, over the years, they added in spouse benefits, survivor benefits, disabled benefits, and so on and so forth.
Disabled, yeah, all
Right.
these other benefits.
Right, so they added all of that stuff in. But the thing I'd like to dispel right now is that illegal aliens do not get Social Security. So if you see that anywhere, it's somebody who's very good at trying to work up people's emotions by saying things and taking the approach that if you say it enough times, it'll become true. It's not true.
So an illegal that, or that they pay taxes on, or somebody that's an alien that they pay Social Security in.
Well, they can only do that if they have a Social Security number, which
Can-
illegals cannot get a Social Security number. So if they use somebody else's, then they are paying money in, but whoever has that Social Security number is getting the benefit of it.
Okay, in addition to you asking how your grandparents could get benefits without ever paying into Social Security, as your grandfather died at 33 and your grandmother never earned anything, as he died at 33, benefits are calculated different. You don't need as many years.
No, he died before 1933.
Oh, he died before 1933? Well, Social Security
Didn't even
wasn't
exist
in effect
then,
back
that's right.
then.
He died
That's what he's
before-
saying.
And she never worked
No, he's saying they both got benefits.
They both got benefits. My grandmother never worked.
before?
But grandmother got benefits.
Well,
She
there,
paid a nickel in.
there is the supplemental security,
Yeah, SSI.
Yeah.
where
which is-
for someone, when they obtain age 65, if they've never worked and they don't qualify for Social Security, they become eligible for SSI, but that is not part of,
Yeah,
out of the
that's-
Social
that's other than
Security
Social
Trust
Security.
Fund. It's handled by Social Security, but it's out of the general fund and not the trust fund. All Americans disabled or 65 plus that do not qualify for an actual Social Security benefit do qualify for SSI.
Yeah, I'm not sure that SSI existed back in those
It was
days,
the
you know.
50s that she actually got.
Yeah, okay. Well, then that probably was, yeah, that's probably what it was, yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, we could actually probably do a whole seminar on myths. I mean, some of the stuff is just, it's so pervasive, and people see it so many times. They say, you know, I've seen this about 10 times, it's got to be true. Oh, I started to tell you, I wrote an article on this.
It's on the internet.
Yeah, saw it
Yeah,
on the
on the
internet.
internet, yeah.
Got to be true.
Well, yeah. I've been accused, because I told the truth about what happens to money that you pay into Social Security, and that is it's used to pay benefits and any surplus goes into the trust fund. So from that article, and I told them about the myths and people, it wasn't being used, every penny's always been accounted for. I've been accused of working for CNN. I've been accused of being a communist, you know. So and people are so passionate about some of this stuff. It's kind of like, no matter what we say, and Jerry and I both, we responded to these things, it doesn't matter what you say, because you're never going to convince them that illegal aliens don't get benefits, right? Or Johnson didn't steal the money, or Kennedy didn't. I mean, it's just there, you know. So we just deal with it.
Just to put another point on the myth of Social Security's trust funds, for so many years, up until this year, as a matter of fact, there was more coming into Social Security than being paid out in benefits. That's reversed this year. This year, there is more being paid out than is coming in through taxes, through tax revenue, primarily tax revenue. And what's being used to offset the difference is the accumulated trust fund, which was roughly $3 trillion last year. I think it was last year.
2.98, something like that.
Yeah, roughly $3 trillion. Now, that is what's being used to make up the difference between what's being paid out and what's coming in. By the year 2035, that $3 trillion will be gone. And that's the solvency issue that's being dealt with these days. And, well, it's not being dealt with yet, is being talked about, let's put it that way, in Washington. You know, what are we going to do in 2035? Social Security has to be self-sustaining, and so in 2035, when the trust funds are zero, then benefits will be cut to match revenue expectations, which means about a 20 to 25% cut in benefits at that point. We've heard numbers in the range of 20 to 25%. So that's the solvency issue, and there are a number of plans to avoid that problem. And AMAC is very active in that particular arena. We have a plan where we believe Social Security can be modernized and strengthened at the same time without raising taxes. And it's being discussed in Washington. And I think that, you know, in a election year like next year, I don't think much is going to happen. It's not a popular topic for people running for office. But I think probably the year after something will have to happen, because by then we're getting into where it's only like 10, 12 years till they run out of money. So it's a significant issue. But again, a lot of people think, and that's one of the problems why people tend to draw benefits at 62, because they've heard Social Security is going bankrupt.
Right.
So I might as well start drawing while I can. But it will never go bankrupt. It may get cut, but it will never go bankrupt. So anyway, I don't want to, we could spend all day on that one.
Yeah, and just to pick up on one of the points that you mentioned, 2020, this 2020 is what you're talking about. This year is the year, I'm sorry, 2020 is the year that they theorized that we're going to start drawing from the trust fund. That was actually originally forecast to be 2018, but as you're probably aware, the economy has been going up like crazy. And that means that more people were working and more people were contributing. So that whole 2018, starting to use it at 2018 kind of went away. I mean, a little bit was contributed to the trust fund, but only like this much. But nevertheless, they didn't have to withdraw from the trust fund, but they will now. Right? So,
Okay.
Go ahead.
Moving into the issues of working and while you're drawing Social Security. Arlene.
Hi, where's the slide?
Here,
Okay. Am I okay? Can you hear me? Okay. Russ actually went over a lot of this slide already, so I'm just going to continue on here. If you, you know, those 35 years that we talked about that go into making the calculation for your Social Security benefit, if you continue to work and you replace, say you earn more than one of those 35 years that was used, then that higher year will be replaced in that formula. So it may increase your benefits a bit if you continue to work and you earn more than your income adjusted earnings that were used as part of that formula to determine your benefit. If you continue working and you're under your full retirement age, you can earn, as he said, the 2020 limit is $18,240 a year or $1,520 a month. If you earn more than that, then your Social Security will withhold $1 for every $2 over the limit that you earn. And if you retire mid-year, say you retire in July, then you'll be subject to the monthly limit for the rest of that year rather than the yearly limit. And after you reach your full retirement age, there's no earnings limit, so you can make as much as you want and they won't take any back from your benefits. And say you started taking your Social Security at 63, and between 63 and 66, maybe you had 12 months that you didn't get your benefit because you earned over the limit. Then when you reach your full retirement age, Social Security is going to go back and recalculate when you started your benefits, and they will add those months back in, so your benefit will increase and reflect that you actually started at the age of 64 rather than 63, because they'll add those months back in. And there are special rules for the year that you reach your full retirement age. The earnings limit goes up substantially. So between January 1st and the month you reach your full retirement age, you can earn up to $48,600 without any reductions. If you do exceed that limit, they'll take back $1 for every $3 earned in excess. And if it's your first year taking benefits, you may be subject to the monthly limit of $4,050. And once again, that limit disappears once you reach the month of your full retirement age.
I'll draw attention to the footnote at the bottom. Consider your future working plans when you decide to file for Social Security. We tell people this all the time because to many people that don't consider that, it becomes an awful surprise and not a pleasant one. So.
And this one is about taxes.
Yeah, talk about surprises. This is
yeah. Are Social Security benefits taxable? Yes, they are. If your modified adjusted gross income reaches certain levels, certain percentages of your Social Security benefits are taxable. And the slide shows if you're single and you exceed $25,000 of your modified adjusted gross income, up to 50% of your benefits is taxable. Or if you're married and you reach $32,000, up to 50% of your Social Security benefits are taxable, and that depends on where you fall with the tax rates as far as your income with the IRS. And if the second level is reached, which would be $34,000 for filing single or $44,000 for filing jointly, then in that case, up to 85% of your Social Security benefits may be taxable. If by chance you're underneath those limits, then they're not taxable at all. And if you want to have taxes withheld from your Social Security benefits, you can do that. You would go to the IRS website, and there's a form called W-4V, which is available. So you can fill that out. You can pick what percentage of your benefits you want to be withheld for taxes. And you can send that back into the Social Security office so that they can be taking that out all along and it won't be a surprise at the end of the year.
Yeah, this is another one of those unfortunate surprises that a lot of people have filed, and in their first year after they file for their Social Security benefits and they do their income tax return, they're kind of surprised to find out that they have a tax obligation. Surprised is a kind of a mild word. And we get a lot of calls about that, like that can't be right. But, so we have to kind of talk them down from that. But it's the law, unfortunately.
It makes them about as happy as the earnings from it.
Yeah, yeah.
It's also convenient for us because we say, hey, it's an IRS rule.
Yeah. And we do reach somewhere. That's about the only thing we can say, once you've gotten that far into it. Okay, moving on. Disability. A very complex topic.
We get this question a lot. Disability. Now, those who are SSDI is available to those of one, have a physical or mental condition that prevents them from engaging in substantial gainful activity. The condition is expected to last at least 12 months or result in death. You are under your full retirement age, and no, you do not get to claim disability. Even if you're working, you're past your full retirement age, you cannot claim disability. And then have sufficient Social Security work credits, and that throws off a lot of people as well. And what we stress is, and I think a lot of people stress, if you know you become disabled, apply as soon as possible. So, because the determination process can be lengthy, it can go from 3 to 5 months, even longer. There are some things called compassionate allowance, which is available for those who have a diagnosis of certain types of cancer, Lou Gehrig's disease. So usually they're expedited. They usually can actually get approval within 10 days for people that have that have those diagnoses underneath the compassionate allowances. even if you're improved in 10 days, it's 5 months waiting period. And then after that, it's your 6th month, you start receiving your check. There's also what's called quick disability termination, which is used in cases where the applicant has obviously disabled, but their diagnosis is not part of the compassion allowance. So, and we recommend them to file. Like I said, it can come 3 to 5 or more years. And then there's also for people that, let's say they're in disability, they're a couple of years down the road, they're feeling good about, maybe they can try to go back to work. Social Security has a system what's called Ticket to Work, which will provide them a chance to test their ability to work at least 9 trial months out of a 60-month period without losing their disability coverage. So, that's really great. I think that helps a lot of people. So, but there's also an option, and a lot of people don't know, and we get this question. I know Sharon, also Rusty, and also Arlene has received the question. If I'm on disability, can I get spousal benefits? Yes, you can. You can get them as early as 62. And spousal benefits on this pot is not pot. Yeah, you can tell my accent.
She's not from around here.
Not from around here. No, I park my car in the Harvard yard. And I've kind of toned it down a little, but every so often it just pops out, guys. Sorry about that. But we encourage them to wait until they reach a full retirement age to get their maximum benefit. And, as long as your spouse is also collecting benefits, that's the only time you can do that. So that's disability in a nutshell. Yes.
Just add a comment here.
Yes.
And we, as Eileen said, we do encourage people to apply for Social Security disability if they think that they can do it.
Mm-hmm.
But be aware that about 2/3 of all disability claims are first denied, are initially denied. So that sounds like a pretty staggering number, but as a result, we also encourage people to appeal, because there's a multi-level appeals process that starts with just saying, hey, could you look at it again? But you can take it up to an independent administrative law judge or even to the courts if you sincerely and really believe that you are disabled and you have the medical evidence to prove it. So, I'm not saying anyone here, but anyone you know that wanted to apply for Social Security disability and have been denied, they don't just accept that, appeal it.
Yeah, I can tell from personal experience. Independent law judge, my husband, for 2 years fought with disability. And he had the cancer diagnoses, he had broken back, he had everything, paralysis. And it took 2 years for that. And it went up to a week before we had a hearing for an independent law judge. The judge was pulled in from another state. He looked at it and automatically gave it to him. So it took 2 years. So that happens, even though you may have all the diagnosis. Unfortunately, his cancer diagnosis wasn't the one that was on the compassion allowance list. So, but he had everything else, and obviously he could not work. So don't ever take no for an answer. If you believe you are disabled and you obviously cannot work, follow it through. So.
Especially in the situation where someone is already 62 and they're being forced to leave employment due to their health or physical condition. At this point, you have the option to file for disability and your early retirement benefit at the same time. In this case, if and when you would win your disability case, you would receive a benefit equal to the amount of your full retirement age benefit. Just be aware, should you lose that case and never win it, you will only receive the permanent reduced early retirement benefit, but that option is available.
So let's talk about spouses, ex-spouses, and survivors. Spouses and ex-spouses. This is also an area that's kind of, we receive a lot of questions on. Spouses and ex-spouses collecting at 62 with a full retirement age of 66 will receive up to 35% of the worker's PIA. Now, this has led to a lot of issues. People will call in, I'm not receiving half of my husband's benefit. And we usually say, well, when did you apply for your benefit, for your spousal benefit? They say, oh, 62. Well, that is a reduction, and that comes from a big surprise. And that's the myth, I think, is one of the many myths that comes around with that. Now, you can get up to 50% at the full retirement age, and of course, if your full retirement age is 66, and if it's a bigger reduction if your full retirement age is 67. Now, ex-spouses is another issue too. Ex-spouse, you must have been married at least 10 years and not remarried. I think a lot of people are surprised at that as well. And this is also a big thing, is there's no spousal boost if your own work benefit is greater than your spouse, equal to or greater than your spouse's. Because everyone says, well, I should get half of my spouse's. Well, what's your benefit? Well, it's not less than 50%. So the question also is survivors. Survivor's spouse at full retirement age gets 100% of the benefit if married 9 months or more. It can be less than 9 months, but only if the person died result of an accident. So surviving ex-spouses also can get 100% of the worker's benefit if married 10 years or more. Both can collect reduced benefits at 60, 50 if disabled, and collect earlier if caring for a minor child of the deceased. A dependent minor child, dependent parents can also get benefits. And when it starts getting into multiple people collecting on the same number holder or the same recipient, that's when a family max would apply. And let's not get into family max. It's very complicated. But if it's a situation you can address, Sharon loves family max questions. I say that. Now let's go into the end of restricted application for spousal benefits only. It is still available for another 4 years. So if the strategy, if you were born prior to January 2nd, 1954 or later, if you were born, the strategy is no longer available to anyone born January 2nd, 1954 or later. If you're born prior to that, you're still eligible to use this strategy. The last age group that's eligible to use this will turn 66 January 1st, 2020. Now, we want to stress that it does not mean you cannot file a restricted application for spousal benefits only after January 1st. Now, there was that one that has gone away, the other strategy, which was file and suspend, which was ended with anyone that wasn't 66 filed no later than April 29th, 2016. So if you're still under that 1953, you still have 4 more years to use that strategy. And divorced spouses are the only ones that can file on each other. Yes, that's one benefit of being a divorced spouse, you can file on each other. So we want to stress, if you think you can use this strategy, please use it. It is very beneficial. So, and if you have any questions, multiple people on this table can answer them. So that's it for restricted application.
Question on that one.
Okay.
Let's just say if I'm 66 and my wife is 62, she applies for Social Security, I can do a restricted application with her then?
If you haven't filed for any benefits yet,
Do I get 50% of her reduced amount, or do I get 50% of her full amount?
you would receive 50% of her full retirement age amount, regardless of what age she starts her own benefit at.
Okay. Now, what if, sorry, the second part to that. If I should, say, wait till 70 and then, I pass away, does she get a survivor benefit then?
If she has reached her full retirement age at your time of death, she will receive 100% of your benefit, including any delayed retirement credits you have earned.
Even though she collected early, she's reduced. If I should pass and I'm at full retirement age, she would jump to what I was receiving.
The fact that the spouse took their own benefit early does not affect the amount of their survivor benefit, only their spousal benefit or their own benefit.
Almost sounds like a no-brainer.
Yeah, but if you were not yet collecting and you were waiting until 70, and let's say you passed at 69, your wife would still get 100% of what you were entitled to when you passed. So she would still get the delayed retirement credits that you had earned up to that point. Right, so you don't have to wait until 70 to die.
Please no.
Right.
Please wait.
Now, you always got to remember they're worth more alive because you're bringing two benefits into the house.
Remember, one check goes away.
Right.
My wife's a luxury.
So the message is you always got to do the numbers.
Yes, please.
Let's talk about cost of living adjustments. Another popular area, especially this time of the year. Let's talk a little bit about how COLA is calculated. And a lot of people don't realize this either, but it's calculated based on the Consumer Price Index for urban wage earners and clerical workers, otherwise known as CPIW. And it's the average change over time in the spending patterns of workers that are classified as wage earners, clerical or wage earners. And they must have been employed for at least 70% of the year to be counted into this calculation process. And CPIW is measured monthly, but only the third quarter counts. Basically what they do is they'll take the CPI numbers that are published by the Bureau of
Labor statistics.
pardon me?
Labor statistics.
Bureau of Labor Statistics, BLS. They'll take the CPIW calculation for July, August, and September of this year and compare it to the same months from last year. And if it's higher, then they'll do a division, and the quotient becomes the cost of living adjustment. If it's less, then cost of living becomes zero, as happened 3 times in the last decade, 2010, 2011, and 2016. So it's zero and not less. You know, they wouldn't give you a negative cost of living adjustment. Well, they could, but they don't. So that's basically how it works mechanically. There's an argument floating as part of one of the Social Security plans to correct the solvency issue of replacing CPIW with CPIE, which is a different measurement for, it's CPI for the elderly. It's really what the E is. And it measures different spending patterns of things that are more important to seniors, like health care and things like that. It weights them more heavy. And so that should improve the cost of living adjustment calculation on behalf of seniors. And taking a look at COLA over the years, the average COLA, since COLA was started in 1975, has been 3.7%. But there were 3 really heavy years, 79 to 81, where COLAs were like 12, 13%, 14%.
Yeah.
Yeah. Back then. If you take those 3 years out of the picture, then it's 3.1%. From 2010 to 2019, it's been 1.5 as the average COLA. So in 2020, we're getting 1.3 or 1.6, which actually beats the average. Now this chart is actually a little misleading. This shows 0 in 2009, but that's because that's the year it was calculated. The effective year of the COLA for that year was 2010, so we go back and forth on that a lot. But that's basically how COLA has patterned over the years since it was initially put into place in 1975. We get, whatever year it was 0.3%, which was 3 years ago? It was 3 years ago.
17?
17, yeah.
We were deluged with questions in January then about, hey, I thought I was getting 0.3%, I got 0. Well, that's because of the Part B Medicare
premium.
deduction, which comes out of Social Security. And so it wiped out, a lot of people's COLA. And it will affect the 1.6% for a lot of people too.
Yeah, that's what I was just going to say, because we'll get as many calls of people who actually do the math
Yeah.
and say, hey, I didn't get 1.6, I only got, 0.9, or I only got 1.1 or something like that.
Yeah,
The answer is the rest goes to your Medicare Part B premium.
yeah. So we'll get hundreds of those kind of calls,
Yeah.
the early part of the year. And we're ready for it. We know it's
Yeah.
coming. So that's COLA. I talk about some maximum taxable earnings issues.
That's me.
Russ?
Ah, yes,
all yours.
maxable, where did that come from? Maximum taxable
Whatever.
earnings, maximal, or otherwise known as maximal. That's also known as the wage base or the payroll tax cap. Basically, it's how much money they will withhold FICA tax on for Social Security. You can see that goes up. It goes up each year. It went up over 2020 versus 2019. It went up about 3.6%. That's kind of average. It's based upon changes to the national average wage index. I really don't want to go through this formula with you, because as it says on the chart, this will make your eyes glaze over or make your forehead hit the table. I mean, it's astounding how, like, they measure everything back from like 1992 and 1994, and the changes since then, which came out to 60,000 times 52,185 divided by 22,935 equals 137,779.71 cents, which averages out to 137,700.
The only reason we show you this is so you understand there's a process
There is a
behind the
process,
picture.
but
You don't just
I
pick
mean,
these
even
out of the
I
air.
live this stuff, as do these guys. I mean, you just look at that formula and say, okay, it's complex. That's all you really need to know, right? Which is true about so many things with Social Security.
But it's automated, so.
Yeah, it's automated, right. That changes incidentally only if a COLA is given, and no COLA is given, then it doesn't change. Maximum payroll tax for 2020, that's is what you're going to pay if you earn $137,800, is $8,537.40. That's how much you're going to pay in payroll taxes if you're working and you make over $137,000, which is up almost $300 over 2019. So tax base goes up. And a good time to mention that income tax on Social Security benefits is an important part of Social Security revenue. Okay, because people paying income tax, and this is a whole other thing that we get questions on all of the time. I have been working since I reached my full retirement age. I've worked, I'm now 75, and I'm still working. But you know what? They are still taking money out of my paycheck. So I want to be reimbursed for that, and I want them to stop doing that. I'm sorry, it doesn't work that way. If you work and you earn, you're going to be paying 6.2% to Social Security. Doesn't matter if you're already collecting. It doesn't matter if you're working after you're collecting. You're working, you're going to pay it, unless you work for a select few places that don't participate in the Social Security program.
Part of what we face in situations like Russ just described is that a lot of people, when they contact us, they think we are the Social Security Administration.
Yeah.
And it's like, I want you to stop doing this, I want you to stop doing that. And we take great pains to try to make them understand we're not affiliated with Social Security, and we're not affiliated with any governmental agencies, but it doesn't matter. I want you to do this. So it gets
Right.
it gets
That's right.
interesting.
Yeah.
I want to go back to I forgot to mention something in the calculation of your actual benefit. I talked about the 35 highest years of earnings. I want to be sure you understand that's the earnings that you paid FICA tax on. If you earn more than that limit, bullet 2 there, if you earn more than that, that doesn't get into the calculation at all. So that's something I wanted to mention then, and I forgot. So.
Yeah, but another point on that, because I just got this just a few days ago, was that someone said, well, you know what, my wife, she works for, it happened to be the Texas school system, and she's paying FICA tax, so therefore she should be able to get Social Security. She's paying FICA tax to Medicare. There's two portions for FICA. One is Social Security, 6.2%. The other is 1.45% for Medicare. So I had to kind of explain to the person, if your wife was a teacher in Texas, she didn't pay into Social Security. She did pay into Medicare, but she didn't pay into Social Security. So she's going to be eligible for WEP, the windfall elimination
Yeah,
provision.
that takes us into WEP.
Well, we got to do this one
we
first.
got one more
because
yet.
This is what Jerry mentioned earlier, was that Social Security benefits are progressive, and that has to do with the fact that Social Security was never meant to be your retirement, your full retirement income. When it was first designed in 1935, Social Security was meant to give you a pension that would replace about 40% for low-income workers of your pre-retirement income. So you see that here, and this goes back to the ones that was in the other chart that we showed, where people look at the National Average Wage Index and figure out how much was contributed versus how much benefit they get. You can see here, this is their benefits, and this is what they contributed. So this is about 40%, and then if they earned 100% of the National Wage Index, it gets up here a little bit more, maybe 30%, represents about 30%. Then over here you can see that it only represents maybe 25%, and then this over here represents about 23% of the replacement income for this is your actual income over here. So it was never meant to be your full retirement. Back in those days, incidentally, used to be that traditional retirement plans called the defined benefit plan, where everybody, you worked for a company for 20 years and you got a retirement. That was supposed to be the other part of your retirement income plus your savings. Well, as we all know, many, if not most, defined benefit plans have gone away. Not mine, thank God, but many have. Most companies, even IBM doesn't even offer that anymore. So I think that's all we. Just a couple of quick points. The maximum benefits amounts. I think it was Sharon mentioned before that at full retirement age for 2020, it's $3,011. Shows the significance if you wait until age 70, the difference in what you can collect. And just for information, a average benefits for one person, a retiree, is $1,461, but a retired couple gets about $2,340 on average. The other thing on the bottom there really says that it's pretty astounding how many people rely very, very heavily on Social Security for their income. Some people, it's all they got. But I think it was 50% rely on it for 90% of their income. Depends on whether you're single or couples. But I mean, those are some pretty staggering numbers when you think about people who need Social Security. Is it a critical program? I don't think you find anybody that's collecting Social Security unless maybe Bill Gates or somebody like that is going to say that it's important to them. It isn't important to them.
Okay, moving into one of our very favorite topics is the windfall elimination provision and the government pension offset. And Sharon just loves this topic so much that she's excited about talking about it. So.
Okay, these two provisions came into effect in 1983 as a result of the way the Social Security formula is weighted, because it's weighted more towards lower workers than higher workers. So the government decided people that worked in positions that didn't pay into Social Security and would also collect a Social Security benefit, full Social Security benefit, were double dipping. Because the statements you see when you're a government employee or teacher that didn't pay into the Social Security system, unfortunately, do not account for all the years you didn't pay in. And you look like a lowly paid earner, so they created these two provisions. What happens when they calculate your benefit? When your benefits are normally calculated, you have the 3 standard bend points. The first bend point for everybody is 90%. The figures change each year due to the National Wage Index. In 2020, the first bend point for calculating your PIA is 90% of the first $960 of your AIM, and it doesn't affect any of the other bend points. Well, for someone that has less than 20 years of substantial earnings or less, their first bend point would be that 960 times 40% to reduce their PIA. Now, when you face that reduction from WEP, it also affects any spousal benefits that your spouse may be eligible for, because their spousal benefit will be based on 50% of the reduced PIA that your spouse is receiving. However, that reduction, the WEP reduction, say your spouse is a surviving spouse and they're eligible for a portion of your government pension, even though they will receive that, their survivor benefit will not be subject to the WEP reduction. They would receive 100% of your benefit at time of death. It's actually recalculated from the full PIA and brought forward by COLA to make sure they get the maximum amount. Now, you can avoid the WEP reduction. One option is you have to forfeit the government pension. This means before you became eligible for that pension, you could withdraw any money that you paid into the pension and any interest that you personally earned on your amount, and you would have to give up the government pension. The other option is to have 30 years or more of substantial earnings, and that WEP reduction disappears. Also, any years over 20, like 21 through 29, will reduce that WEP reduction. Now, then there's also the government pension offset. This is what would affect the government's workers' own spousal or survivor benefit. Now, this can be a lot more hard-hitting than the WEP reduction, because when you're subject to the government pension offset, what they do is they take 2/3 of your government pension, and that's what they reduce any spousal or survivor benefit by, where as a result, it can actually zero out your entire spousal or survivor benefit. And you can also get out of the government pension offset reduction if during the last 5 years you work, that you work in a position where you contribute to both Social Security and the same pension plan. You can work as little as 1 day a month, and you would still qualify to no longer be subject to the government pension offset. But during that period, you cannot work so much as 1 day in a position that doesn't pay into Social Security, because if you do, it will cancel out any month that you do that. So you have to be real careful, especially with teachers, especially the state of Texas, as you were mentioning. State of Texas has both types of school districts, and teachers can cross from one that pays into Social Security and the pension, and then pays into one that doesn't pay into Social Security and just the pension, and they could accidentally subject themselves to the government pension offset if they weren't originally affected by it. So you have to be really careful that you do not accept a position during that 5-month period that does not pay into Social Security. And for more detailed information, contact us. It is a very confusing area of Social Security.
Yeah, one thing I'd like to just add to that is that the windfall elimination provision cannot eliminate your benefit, and I believe as Sharon was touching on, the GPO, the government pension offset, can completely wipe it out. So there's a pretty important distinction there.
Well, that is correct, because your WEP reduction can never be more than 50% of your pension. It cannot zero out your benefit. And there is a maximum reduction amount sent each year. On the year someone turns 62, I believe for 2020, it's 480.
I want to say 447, but that might be 2019.
Yes, unfortunately, I forgot to write that figure down, but it did change for
Or
467,
I think.
for 420. It
Yeah.
goes up slightly each year, but it's always based on the year you turn 62. So even if you wait to 70 to take your benefit, the WEP reduction's going to be based on the year you turn 62.
So if any of you are former government employees and you have questions about this, you'll need to discuss this at length with Sharon, because there's a lot of personal information we need to bring into the analysis.
But that's a real good point also, because the federal government is now on a system, a retirement system. Employees of the federal government now actually do pay into Social Security through a program called FERS, F-E-R-S, which is Federal Employee Retirement System. Those who were under the old system, which was called Civil Service Retirement System, did not pay into Social Security. So we hear from people every day who are still on the old system.
Well, then you have the CSRS
Offset, which is in between, right? So
That one's fun.
yeah. So that means that there are people who were eligible under the old system, left the employment, came back in the period of time that it was transitioning, so it really gets, I mean, those are like, you want to get your calculator out.
Does that include, say, military?
Includes
No.
what? Military? No. No. Military, since 1958, I believe, since the 1950s, has paid into Social Security. So if you're in the military, you pay into Social Security. I did.
I have a relative that did his 20 years, and now he's working for a state thing, state employment. And the way they start talking about this, some places he can get things and some places he can't under Social Security. It gets very complicated with him.
Well, he's-
Yeah, there's about 20 states out there yet where certain state positions, teaching positions, and stuff are affected.
Construction under the state.
Yeah, and in fact,
It depends
some states,
on the state.
there are 26 states, and the degree to which their employees participate in or don't participate in Social Security varies. Texas and California are up on the top of the list of the worst ones, where most employees do not participate. But you get to New Hampshire, and part of them do and part of them don't.
He's turning 62 next year.
Mhm.
And I know he's planning on just retiring because he's getting his retirement from the military.
Right.
He can do all kinds of things. Would it be a good idea for him to contact somebody and talk to him and figure out all this down to details?
Sure.
Is he working, you say, for the military? Is he in the service?
No, he's got a
20 years
pension.
in.
He's got a pension
Oh.
from the
His
military.
pension from the military.
And he's now working in construction for a state.
In one of the states.
Well, if he's working for the Department of Defense, then he's federal.
No, Department of Transportation. He's helping build roads.
Right, but if he's doing it under the federal, as a federal employee,
Is it a quasi-federal?
yeah, I don't know. So,
Best bet is to talk to somebody.
the best bet is to get in touch with us, yeah.
That's the name. Okay.
Yeah, we take phone calls, emails, and walk-ins. So, are you local?
Yeah, he's in Virginia.
Yeah,
It's a
okay.
long walk.
Yeah. But, you can contact us by
Well,
phone.
locals are welcome to come in for in-house appointments, for one-on-one social security consultations. We do prefer calling and scheduling an appointment to make sure someone's available to have the time to spend with you when you get there.
And again, we don't charge for any of these services, so, it's all free to the public.
Neither do we try and sell you anything.
Nope. Nope. we're
You
not
get a
gonna-
lot of financial services firms who offer Social Security seminars, and what's their motivation? Well, to make you a customer of theirs, right? You don't have to pay us anything.
Okay, our last piece here, I want to have Eileen talk a little bit about Medicare. We get a lot of questions about Medicare, particularly people aging into Medicare and have questions about how Social Security, how they need to deal with Social Security as they age into Medicare, so.
Okay. The standard Medicare Part B premium is going up to $144.60. If you have higher income, of course, that's going to be affected by IRMA. And then your Part A deductible is going up to $1,408, and your Part B deductible is going up to $198. I suggest that, well, it's past the open enrollment period, but always check into what your benefits are, either under standard Medicare, if you have original Medicare, Medicare Advantage plan, if you have a Part C, always check your benefits. Your Part D is your drugs, so always check into that, always on a yearly basis. So that's about it for Medicare, unless you have some specific questions. I know we get a lot of questions on Part P penalties, Part D penalties, IRMA. If you are affected by IRMA, there are ways of getting out of IRMA by life.
You might just want to explain what IRMA is.
Oh. It is a higher income. It's income-related adjusted.
Income-related Medicare adjustment amount.
Yeah. So what happens is if you have a higher amount of money coming in, your Part B premium and your Part D premium will be more. And based on where you are, filing single or jointly, what your benefit will cost. So but there are ways sometimes to get out of IRMA, of life-changing events, and there's a list of it, and there is a form to fill out that you can submit to Social Security to have them reconsider your, to bring it back down to the standard amount, or even lower it a little bit. So there is that. And you can always, it's SSA 44. They have not updated for the 2020, because I was on there yesterday, and actually I was talking to someone about IRMA yesterday about appealing or reconsideration of IRMA. He had a life-changing event. They both stopped work, and they took money out of their 401k to unfortunately kick them into a situation where IRMA and where they got hit was for 2018. IRMA is based on 2 years prior to. So let's say you have a life-changing event. Like you said, a work stoppage. You got a lump sum payment that threw you over into the income category. But the following year, your income drops down. That's when you can come in and file that form, life-changing event. You ask for reconsideration and saying, we don't want you to use your 2018 because we stopped work, we got a lump sum payment that put us over. Now our income dropped in 2019. And you would fill out this form, you would put all your supporting documentation and submit it. And then you would get a result back from them. So that's basically anything for Medicare. There are also people that, unfortunately, if you happen to know somebody that can afford their Part B premiums and their Part D premiums, there are government programs out there to help them pay for that. So we also can give information on that as well.
So again, just like in the windfall elimination and GPO, any questions about Medicare, just give us a call and we'll walk you through it. That pretty much wraps up the material that we wanted to present to you today. We are planning to do this, actually we've been doing it now. This is the third time we've done this particular seminar, and we'll continue to do it in the future because I think it's really important for people to understand these things. We know it's complex, and we know some of this stuff sounds like mysterious processing, and some of it is, but we think it's important. Keep an eye on the Foundation website's events page for future editions of this seminar and others that we do, the 2 or 3 a month that we do throughout the year. And that address for that is amacfoundation.org/events. And then you'll see everything that we have planned that's upcoming. Again, our advisory service, as all the services that we provide, are free to the public. We are not government funded. We operate based on contributions from the public. AMAC members basically contribute funding for us, so there is no charge for what we do. And to stay current on what's going on in Social Security, check out that socialsecurity.report.org. There's a lot of breaking news, valuable information on there. Same thing with Medicare Report. A lot of pertinent news and background information about those two subjects. So check those out. And with that, I think we have nothing more to say at this point. If you have any particular personal questions you want us to address, we'll be here for a while. Just stop up and see us. And with that, again, I'll thank you for coming. I appreciate you being here.